So to be ready to receive, like, let's say somebody says, "Hey, I want to give you a check." In fact, another one of my students, she had done the leader story, and one guy said, "Hey, I'd like to give you $100,000. I'd like to invest." And another person said, "I'd like to invest 5,000." She wasn't ready to receive, and so she couldn't just say yes, which is too bad, right? And maybe she'll get there. Um, Sometimes people really, it does take work. It does take some effort to be able to actually receive money. And now you can shorten that by framing things properly. But when we talk about your financial plumbing and receiving money, what we're really talking about is some, kind of the technical aspects of money flow. So, depending on where you are in the world, but I mean, there's banks everywhere in the world, pretty much. I mean, you know, if you don't have a bank in your country, you're probably not watching this video. Let's just say that. So, so how do you really receive the money? Let's say you're just raising cash. Somebody gives you cash. You put it in your pocket. I mean, what about things like a written agreement? Is that kind of thing ready where you're ready to essentially commemorate this exchange of energy with some guidance about the future, right? The point, somebody's giving you something now, and the idea is it's to create something in the future. So, most transactions are very immediately transactional. I use that word a lot, transactional. So what does it mean to be transactional? Well, you go to the shoe store, you want shoes, you find some shoes, you go to the cash register, basically you give them the cash and they hand you the shoes at more or less the exact same time. Whereas, let's say you're raising money to allow yourself to quit your day job, you're raising your recurring salary so that you can pursue your dream projects instead of trying to subsidize it by, driving an Uber or working at Starbucks. Well, now, you've got the person at the point where they're ready to give. That's cool. But what about the future? Because really what we're talking about there is a kind of a promise that you will apply your intentions to this effort. So getting that worked out, that's the kind of first step just in language. But then there's the actual bank account. And, do you need a business account to receive the money? Or if you're raising capital, which is really much more advanced discussion, but is it legal? Are you, certainly in the US and most other countries have a whole slew of laws about what you can and can't say when you're asking people to buy equity in your projects. And then the structuring of that's another layer of conversation. We can touch on that. We will touch on that, much later. And so, being ready to receive cash as donations is a lot easier, a lot lower threshold. That's why I teach that for people who are at that stage just trying to quit their day job so they can focus on their dream. But to be honest, that activity will soon lead people to say, well, can I also invest in your company? Like that happened with me. It's like I was doing my thing and people just asked me, it's like, I love your idea. Are you selling equity? Can I buy? So you do want to get ready for that. And I have some very simple methods for doing that. I think I made a video about how to hire a securities lawyer for free. That's a pretty fast way to start receiving equity capital with hardly knowing what you're doing. You don't receive it in your own bank. You need to do a little more work, but if you're raising capital, I'll teach you. If you want to raise capital, book a call with me and we'll get started teaching you how to do it the right way so that you don't spend, tens of thousands of dollars on securities lawyers. And you can start receiving money even for equity almost immediately. You can't necessarily start spending it, but you can certainly start receiving it and getting it in an escrow account. So, I mean, this covers almost the whole cycle of any kind of project you might want to grow, whether it's a charity. You need the structure to receive the money. How's that money going to flow from that person's bank account into yours? So like with capital, it's going to flow from their bank account into the escrow account with the attorney. And then when everybody signed the docs, everyone who put the money in escrow, that now they've all signed the documents. Now the attorney can open the spigot and move all that money from the attorney's account into your business account. So is your business account ready to go? And then how do you manage that with integrity? How do you make sure that that money just sort of doesn't, nothing really disappears, but sometimes there are people that have their hand in the till, and I'm working on some projects here, and people want to know, it's like, look, how do we know if we put $1 million into this, how do we know that it's just not going to end up in somebody's pocket? In fact, when I was in India a while back, I got an Indian joke book, and this is something you got to manage, not only with your words coming out of your mouth, but the documentation, the structural integrity, because the kind of the architecture and the plumbing of money. So this joke is what most people think, when they're going to write a big check. And so it was about these two guys. They were schoolmates. It could be any country, but it just happened to be in India. And I think, well, it's a lot easier to talk about corruption in some other country. Anyway, the two guys, it was written by an Indian guy. Okay, so anyway, trying to get your approval here. Not saying anything un-PC. This is not a smear on people from India. In fact, just as an aside, I'm in Mexico right now, and people say, oh, they call them tiburones, which means sharks. And a lot of my friends here are really afraid about money because they think that the only people that can have money are criminals. It's not that easy. You want to be a criminal and you want to have a lot of money, you're doing a lot of work. And plus it's dangerous, but not that. Finally, enough of them said this to me, the same thing. And I go, wow, these are good friends of mine. I go, God, you Mexicans really, you're so proud of your criminals. You think they're so big, it's so important. I said, look, I'm from the United States. Like, we're number one. Like, here, yeah, you want to steal $1 billion, okay. But in the United States, like, when you want to start stealing trillions, you go to the United States. Like, these guys, these sharks, these tiburones, they're nothing to me. Now, look, that's easy for me to say here. I'm not in the room with anyone, but fundamentally, I'm not really afraid of people because I'm not coming to anybody with the intention of attacking them for anything. And when you come in peace, you're creating from your state. I just don't hold people in those categories. And again, you can see that holding on to the idea that to have money means you're a criminal, that's almost like a guarantee you'll never have anything to play with. And if we want to do some big changes in the world, we need to be able to get in the game, just not the exact same game, not the game of crime, but the game of alignment. So anyway, back to this story. So these two guys, they're in school together, then they grow up and one of them gets a job in the government, and his friend comes over after several years of that, and the guy's got a really big house and he's got like a fancy car. And the first friend says, wow, like, you've really done well for yourself. And as a government official, like, how did you manage that? He said, well, you see that bridge over there? And he points over to a bridge off in the distance they could see from his balcony. He goes, well, I took half the budget for myself. So the other friend, he goes, oh, okay. He starts thinking. He goes home. And then he gets a job in the government. A few years later, the rich friend is visiting him. He's got a bigger house and he's got a more expensive car and just, luxury everywhere. And so the first guy goes, wow, you did so great. And you're just a government official. And the guy said, well, how did you manage? Like, you've surpassed even me. He said, well, you see that bridge over there? And the guy looks and he says, no, I don't see any bridge over there. He says, that's because I took 100% of the budget for myself. So I'm not sure where that fits into this video, but you want to manage for that. that's where this fits in this video. Like, we're talking about financial plumbing. We're talking about integrity. So integrity is we're kind of introducing that as a new subject, because integrity is a really profound level of alignment between what you say and what you do. And when we're trying to create the future, like there's a lot of variables. It's hard to really guarantee that things will work, but there are a lot of ways to speak and a lot of ways to think about the future that really kind of create proper expectations and also reduce the kind of randomness of just chaos. And if you're able to manage that, then you get the privilege of being able to create really beautiful things in the world. And that's really why I made this video. So thanks for listening. And as always, put any questions you like below.